Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and today we have the Hunter's Brief. I'm doing something very different today, and so if you are listening to this, if you're one of the few and the proud Hunter's Brief listeners, I want you to give me some feedback on what you think of today's episode. It's a little bit longer. You're going to hear a different voice. It is all about stories going around the country and even around the world. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and please do send me some feedback, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You can even go to my email in this little form. You can just give me some feedback there. I would really appreciate it. Beyond that, guys, now an affiliate with Killshot Coffee. Check out the links in the show notes for all the links to Killshot Coffee, Go Ruck, Vortex. If you guys could give those some clicks, that's all it takes to support the podcast. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you tuning in. And I hope you enjoy this new style of the Hunter's Brief.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Thursday, February 12th, 2026. Yeah. You know, I was standing in my garage this morning looking at my gear, and usually mid-February is when my brain kind of checks out. The guns are cleaned and locked in the safe, the waders are hung up dry, and the fishing gear is maybe getting respooled if I'm feeling ambitious. But mostly the woods just feel, well, asleep.
It is supposed to be the dormant season. I mean, that's the biological rhythm. Everything is hunkering down, trying to conserve energy.
Right. But then I opened the stack of research we have for today, specifically this briefing from Hunter's Brief covering the week of February 9th through the 15th. And, you know, dormant is the last word I would use.
Not at all.
It feels like the machinery of wildlife management is running hotter right now than it does in October.
It really is. And I think that's a massive misconception a lot of people have. We tend to think the action happens during the season when the trigger is pulled or the hook is set. But the rules of the game, the infrastructure, the things that dictate whether you can step foot on that mountain or what you can put in your freezer next fall, that is all happening right now.
And it is a wild mix this week. We are looking at everything from high-level bureaucratic orders signed in D.C. that change the fundamental philosophy of public lands, all the way down to a frozen river in Idaho where the ice is physically breaking up as we speak.
Yeah, we've got court filings on wolves, CWD reports, even some really controversial stuff coming out of British Columbia.
So our mission today is to connect those dots, because it is so easy to see a headline about a subcommittee hearing or a secretarial order and just glaze over.
Oh, absolutely. But these regulations, these court cases, they aren't just paperwork. They are the playbook. They dictate how you and everyone listening get to interact with the wild.
So let's get into it. We are going to start at the very top of the food chain, Washington, D.C., and a major shift from the Department of the Interior. This is Secretarial Order 3447.
Signed back on January 7th, 2026.
Right, but the analysis is just hitting now. And honestly, Secretarial Order 3447 sounds incredibly dry. I almost skipped it in the stack.
I don't blame you.
But then I read the summary, and this effectively flips the script on how the government views access, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, if you want the back of the napkin summary, here it is. The core directive states that hunting, fishing, and recreational shooting are now to be considered the default use on Department of the Interior lands and waters.
Default. That is a heavy word in a legal context.
It's massive. Think about how bureaucracy usually works. Typically, if you want to do something on federal land, you often have to justify why it should be allowed. You have to prove compatibility. This order shifts the burden of proof completely. It says the starting position for the agency is yes. If a land manager wants to say no, if they want to restrict hunting or fishing, they now need a specific, documented legal reason to do so.
So no more closed until we decide to open it. It's open unless we have a really good reason to close it.
That's the intention. And if you look at the source material, the supporters of this order are, well, they're obviously cheering. They see this as cutting through a massive amount of red tape.
I can see that.
It ensures consistency.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have one bureau manager saying yes and another saying no just based on personal preference or, risk aversion. It attempts to codify the heritage of sporting access into the DNA of the agency.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. I'm reading the counter arguments in the briefing, and not everyone is popping champagne. Specifically, groups focused on national parks or strict preservation are raising red flags.
And their argument is worth listening to because it highlights the complexity of land management. Their concern is twofold.
Okay.
First, they worry this default open philosophy puts immense pressure on sensitive resources. If the default is go ahead and use it, are we prioritizing recreation over conservation? Are we putting boots on the ground in places that actually need to rest?
That makes sense. Some places might need to be left alone for the sake of the habitat itself. And what's the second argument?
That it's largely symbolic.
How so?
Well, many of these DOI lands were already open where it's compatible. So the critics are asking, is this order actually changing the reality on the ground, or is it just political signaling?
Is it a solution in search of a problem?
That's it. That's the question.
That is the million-dollar question. But even if it is symbolic, symbols matter in bureaucracy. They set the tone for the staff on the ground.
They absolutely do. And for the listener, the so what here isn't necessarily that 1,000 new gates are going to swing open tomorrow. It's about the friction in the system. It's about how difficult it becomes for an agency to close an area in the future.
It forces them to show their work.
Exactly. If you're a hunter or an angler, that procedural hurdle protects your access.
Speaking of the machinery of government, we also had some action in the House just 2 days ago on February 10th. The Federal Lands Subcommittee held a legislative hearing.
Ah, yes. The boring on paper hearing.
I admit, I usually scroll past these in my newsfeed. It's usually guys in suits talking about budget line items. But you flagged this as a critical early warning system. Why should I care about a subcommittee hearing in February?
Because by the time a law hits the headlines or your Facebook feed, it's usually too late to influence it. These subcommittee hearings are where the sausage starts getting made. Even if a bill doesn't scream hunting or fishing in the title, they were discussing legislation that touches on fire policy, habitat restoration, and agency priorities.
Give me a concrete example.
Take fire policy. They might be discussing budget allocations for fuel reduction. That sounds dull. But what does fuel reduction look like in the real world? It looks like thinning timber on the ridge where you elk hunt.
I see.
It looks like prescribed burns that might close your turkey spot for a season, but make it 10 times better the next.
So if you care about whether your favorite ridge is going to be thinned or closed for habitat recovery, this is where that conversation starts.
Exactly. It's the breadcrumbs. If you track these hearings, you know where the access rules are headed 3 years from now. It's about being proactive rather than reactive.
Okay, sticking with the feds for one more minute before we get to the biology. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is making a move to deregulate some refuge rules. This goes into effect March 16th.
That's right. And there is a comment window that ends very soon, February 17th.
Deregulation is another one of those buzzwords that can mean anything. Are we talking about a free-for-all, or is this just housekeeping?
In this case, it seems to be mostly housekeeping. The stated goal is removing duplicative regulations, basically rules that already exist under other federal or state laws.
So things like littering, alcohol use.
Exactly. And some specific language regarding weapons. The idea is, if littering is already illegal under a general federal code, we don't need a specific refuge rule saying, also don't litter here.
That makes sense. Streamlining.
It streamlines the code of federal regulations. But, and here is the nuance, deregulation can be a double-edged sword for the user.
How so? I would think fewer rules are better.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
But clarity is king. If you remove a specific rule from the refuge handbook, because it's covered by a general state law, does the visitor know that?
Good point.
If you are standing in a parking lot at a national wildlife refuge at 5 a.m., you want to know exactly what is enforced right there.
Right. You don't want to be guessing which federal code applies to the beer in your cooler or the casing in your truck bed. You want to look at the sign at the trailhead and know where you stand.
Precisely. Sometimes duplicative rules are actually helpful because they put the information right in front of your face. So while this sounds bureaucratic, it translates directly to the user experience.
All right, let's pivot. We've talked about the paper pushers. Now let's talk about the animals. And we have to start with the ones that always get people talking. The charismatic megafauna.
The predators.
Wolves. There is a new lawsuit filed just this week, February 10th. And this one seems ambitious. They aren't just suing over a specific state's quota. They are demanding a national gray wolf recovery plan.
This is a classic example of the tension between federal mandates and state reality. The lawsuit is arguing that you cannot manage wolves piecemeal. They want a coherent, nationwide strategy for recovery.
Which, if you are looking at a map from a desk in D.C., sounds logical. Wolves don't see state lines. A wolf doesn't know when it crosses from Idaho into Montana.
True. But the opponents, and this includes many state game agencies, argue that wolves have already recovered in the regions that matter. They argue that a wolf in the timber of northern Minnesota faces completely different challenges than a wolf in the high desert of Idaho.
Or the forests of Oregon.
Exactly. They're saying we know our wolves better than a national plan would. State-led management allows for agility. If a pack starts targeting livestock in a specific valley, the state can react. A national plan is a blunt instrument.
So if this lawsuit succeeds, what happens? Does everything just freeze?
It throws a wrench in the gears. It affects timelines for delisting. It affects predictability. Think about it from the perspective of an outfitter or a rancher. If you are an outfitter booking hunts or a rancher moving cattle, you rely on knowing what the rules are. You need to know if lethal control is an option, or if a season will open.
It's the whiplash effect.
That's a great term for it. The rules change so fast because of court filings that you can't make a 5-year business plan. A national reset button creates a massive amount of uncertainty.
And speaking of uncertainty, we have to talk about grizzlies.
Yes, another delay.
A federal judge just approved an extension for the grizzly recovery planning process. The new deadline is December 18th, 2026.
This is significant. We are talking about nearly another year of limbo.
And let's be real, December 18th is after the fall hunting season. So for anyone hoping for a change in status or a hunt in 2026.
That door is closed. The status quo remains.
But for the person listening who might be planning an elk hunt in the Rockies next year, or who lives in grizzly country, what does this delay actually mean beyond just no grizzly tags?
It means the frustration builds. Delays prolong the uncertainty for states that are trying to manage conflict response. If you are a state biologist, you can't fully implement your management plan until the feds sign off on the recovery status.
You're fighting with one hand tied behind your back.
Pretty much. And meanwhile, the bears are still there.
The bears are very much there.
And they aren't reading the court filings.
Yeah.
They're expanding their range. They're moving into agricultural areas. They are influencing where elk herd up. Hunters are having to change how they handle carcasses, carry bear spray, and how they move through the backcountry.
That's a really important point. The biology isn't waiting for the court date. The bears are doing what bears do.
Exactly. And that brings us to a quieter, but maybe more persistent biological threat. Chronic wasting disease, or CWD.
The slow-moving crisis. We got a report out of Michigan this week. CWD has been detected for the first time in Gladwin County. This was tied to a deer harvested by a hunter in Clement Township.
Right. And looking at the briefing, I think the key takeaway here is the phrase pattern over panic.
What do you mean by that? Because usually when CWD hits a new county, the forums light up. People start asking if the herd is doomed.
Well, getting a positive test in a new county is never good news, don't get me wrong. But according to the Michigan DNR, this isn't a surprise jump. It tracks with the slow expected spread they have been modeling.
So it's not a sudden explosion miles away from the known zone.
Right. It's a creeping expansion. So it's not time to hang up the bow, but it is time to be smart.
And what does that mean?
The public health message hasn't changed. Do not consume meat from positive animals. Use caution when you are processing. Wear gloves. Debone the meat. Don't cut through the spinal cord if you can avoid it.
And I think it highlights the role of the hunter here. This positive came from a hunter-harvested deer. We aren't just the users of the resource, we are the sampling network.
We are the front line. The agencies can't test without hunters submitting samples. So staying plugged into your state's testing requirements isn't just bureaucratic compliance, it's participating in the science. You are data point number one.
Okay, let's take a breath. We've done the courts, we've done the diseases. Let's go to the river. I need some fresh air.
Let's go to Idaho.
Specifically, the Upper Salmon River. We got a field report that the Deadwater ice jam broke early on the morning of February 10th.
Which is actually a bit earlier than usual.
Yeah, and the host in the briefing made a specific point to warn anglers. Now, if you are hearing ice jam break, you might be thinking, great, open water, let's go fishing. But what's the reality on the ground?
The reality is violence. When an ice jam breaks, it's not just melting. It's millions of tons of ice grinding against the shore. It scours the banks. It churns up the bottom.
So the water is just a mess.
The water below Deadwater is going to be chocolate milk turbid and messy for a while, and dangerous, potentially. The report mentioned the potential for refreezing if cold snaps return.
So it's a safety issue.
It's a genuine safety issue. Visibility is low, and the water levels can fluctuate rapidly.
Good to know.
Hey, hunters. Have you ever had one of those stories, the ones that you didn't want to tell, the ones that end in failure? Yeah, I've been there. Actually, you know what? The culprit for me usually is bad optics, or worse, lack of using my optics at all. Picture this. I spot a trophy buck, or an antelope, or an elk, whatever it may be. My heart is racing, but the blurry view, or I just can't quite identify exactly what I'm looking at, it has me second guessing. Well, that's where Vortex Optics comes in. With crystal clear glass and rugged durability, Vortex gives you the confidence to take the shot. Don't let poor optics ruin your story. Make every moment count. Upgrade to Vortex and turn your hunting tales into triumphs. Visit vortexoptics.com today.
They always tell you there's a catch, a compromise, an asterisk. Terms apply. See store for details. May be less than advertised. May vary by mood. Probably. Sprite Zero Sugar? It's different. It's the lemon lime flavored refreshment you want with zero sugar. So, no fast voice? No caveats. Just refreshment. This is Sprite Zero Sugar. Obey your thirst.
Quick break to talk about something that actually is part of my daily routine. Killshot coffee. If you're like me, mornings start early. Whether it's a hunt, a workout, getting after the day, children, who knows, Killshot is the coffee that gets you moving. It's bold, smooth, and doesn't taste burned or watered down like a lot of other big-name brands. Killshot is veteran-owned, unapologetically American, and built for people who live an active outdoor lifestyle. No fluff, just damn good coffee that hits when you need it most. If you want to support the show and upgrade your morning routine, check out Killshot Coffee. I've got the link waiting for you in the show notes.
While we are in the Rockies, let's zoom out a bit. The 2026 fishing regulations for the Rocky Mountain region and Yellowstone area are rolling out right now.
This is the time of year to pick up the new pamphlet.
I know. It feels like homework. But I always wonder, why do these change every single year? Can't we just settle on a rule? 3 trout, barbless hooks, done.
I wish. But regulations are tools, not commandments. They are the dials the managers turn to, adjust for things like pressure and, increasingly, environmental stress. You'll see changes in seasonal closures, often to protect spawning fish or specific tackle rules.
And lately we see a lot more regarding heat stress, right? Hoot owl restrictions where you can't fish in the afternoon.
Exactly, and those are critical. If you are catching a trout in 70-degree water, even if you release it perfectly, the mortality rate skyrockets. The stress is just too much.
Not enough oxygen in the water.
Not enough dissolved oxygen. So these regs aren't just about stopping you from fishing. They're about keeping the fishery alive for next year.
And I didn't know is a tough sell to a warden who knows you didn't read the 2026 update.
It never works. Ignorance is not a valid defense.
Let's look north, way north.
Okay.
To British Columbia, we have a Canada Corner update that is stirring the pot significantly.
This one is heating up. BC is taking public input on proposals for the 2026-2028 hunting and trapping seasons. And the big headline is a proposal to prohibit lead shot for all hunting in BC.
Wait, let's clarify that. All hunting. So not just ducks and geese, which has been the rule for a long time across North America. We're talking grouse, rabbits, turkeys.
Everything. Expanding beyond the migratory bird ban to include upland game and potentially anything else shot with the shotgun.
That is a massive shift. I mean, upland hunters have been using lead largely because steel-shot ballistics are, well, they're different.
They are different. Lead is heavy, it carries energy well, steel is lighter and loses velocity faster. So for the hunter, this means more than just buying a different box of shells.
You have to rethink your effective range.
And maybe your vintage shotgun can't handle the harder steel shot without damaging the barrel. And then there is the cost. Bismuth or tungsten, the high-end non-toxic stuff, can be incredibly expensive compared to a box of lead game loads.
So what's the argument for it?
The argument from the province connects to this larger North American debate we are seeing regarding wildlife health. It's about scavenger impacts. Eagles, vultures, bears, critters that eat gut piles, or wounded game that isn't recovered.
The secondary poisoning argument.
Right. They ingest that lead, and it's toxic. The science on that is becoming clearer. So the tension is between the practical and financial burden on the hunter and the ecosystem health argument. It's a classic conservation dilemma.
And that's not the only controversy in BC, is it?
No. There are also proposals regarding moose and caribou hunts that are causing some serious debate. These intersect with indigenous rights, local economies, and very specific regional herd dynamics.
Caribou especially seem to be a flashpoint lately.
They are. Caribou recovery is incredibly complex. You have habitat loss from logging and industry, you have predation from wolves, and you have hunting pressure. Closing hunts or changing access affects local guides and resident hunters deeply.
It's never just about biology.
It's about who gets to access the land and who pays the price for recovery.
This brings us to our final topic, and it's a darker one. We spend a lot of time talking about rules and ethical hunters trying to follow them, but there is a whole world that ignores them completely.
The black market.
California authorities just announced a major disruption of an international wildlife trafficking ring.
This is a stark reminder that wildlife trafficking isn't just something that happens in distant jungles or on the African savanna. California is a major hub. It's a port of entry and a massive market.
The source material mentioned that this intersects with organized crime. We aren't just talking about a guy poaching an extra deer for the freezer because he's hungry.
No, this is high-level criminal enterprise. We are talking about trafficking in parts, products, sometimes live animals. It involves money laundering. It's sophisticated.
And it connects globally. We saw a note in the briefing about Japan, too.
Right. A Japanese NGO is calling for closing loopholes in their domestic ivory market.
How do you connect a bust in California with ivory rules in Japan?
It's the supply chain. The expert consensus is that where you have legal markets with weak points like loopholes in Japan's ivory laws, illegal supply chains will try to squeeze through. They use the legal market to launder the illegal product.
So the black market tries to blend in with the legitimate trade.
Exactly. And that poisons public trust. It makes it harder for ethical hunters and conservationists to argue for sustainable use when the public sees headlines about trafficking and poaching.
It's a stain on the whole community, even if we aren't the ones doing it.
Which is why you see conservation groups cheering these busts. Legitimacy is everything. If we want to keep the default open access we talked about earlier, we have to show that we can police our own and that the system works.
So, bringing it all back home, we started with the Department of the Interior saying open is the default. We walked through the courts with wolves and grizzlies. We checked the ice in Idaho and the ammo debate in BC.
It has been quite the journey across the map.
When you look at this stack as a whole, what are you taking away from this week in February 2026?
You know, there is a fascinating tension here that I can't quite shake. On one hand, we have this federal push, the DOI order, trying to make access default open. They want to remove barriers. They want to say yes.
Right. Go forth and hunt.
But then look at the other stories. CWD requires testing and carcass restrictions. Wolf recovery lawsuits create legal uncertainty. Grizzly delays mean you have to be hyper-aware of where you step. Lead shot bans change what you can put in your gun.
So the policy says open, but the reality says complicated.
Exactly. And that leads to a provocative thought for the listener. Are we heading toward a future where access is technically, legally open, the gate is unlocked, but practically it is becoming impossible to navigate because of the biological and legal complexity?
That is a heavy thought. It's not the no trespassing sign that stops you. It's the mountain of regulations and biological hazards you have to climb just to step over the property line.
It demands a more educated outdoorsman. You cannot just be a passive participant anymore. You have to be a student of the regulations and the biology.
Well, on that note, I think I need to go read those 2026 fishing regs before I even think about hitting the river.
Probably a good idea. Don't be the guy explaining to the warden that you didn't know.
Thank you all for listening to this deep dive. Check the regulations for your specific region, stay safe on the ice, and we will see you next time.
All right, guys, that's it. Another episode of the Hunting Stories podcast, The Hunter's Brief. Again, it was different today. I want to get your feedback. I want to hear your thoughts, and also want to hear what you think of the story quality. You know, do you want to hear from different areas of the country, different areas of the world? Let me know, looking for feedback to make this format as strong as possible, or scrap it all together. You guys tell me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Again, there is a link tree in the show notes. If you guys could click on the links in there, Vortex, Go Hunt, and Kill Shot Coffee, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Now get out there and make some stories of your own.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Tap the banner or visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
But I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Quick break to talk about something that actually is part of my daily routine, Kill Shot Coffee. If you're like me, mornings start early, whether it's a hunt, a workout, getting after the day, children, who knows, Kill Shot is the coffee that gets you moving. It's bold, smooth, and doesn't taste burned or watered down like a lot of other big-name brands. Kill Shot is veteran-owned, unapologetically American, and built for people who live an active outdoor lifestyle. No fluff, just damn good coffee that hits when you need it most. If you want to support the show and upgrade your morning routine, check out Kill Shot Coffee. I've got the link waiting for you in the show notes.